Before the next round of the NCAA tournament, let's take a look at some draft sleepers still in March Madness. This is Floor and Ceiling, let's break them down. Up first, we have Miami guard Isaiah Wong. The senior scorer had plenty of eyes on him in last year's tournament as well, but he's grown all season and it's now culminating in another nice run for the U. Really, if you're drafting Wong, it's with his offensive value in mind. He competes on D, but this hasn't been his calling card in all honesty. Wong is a legit 3-level scoring prospect who's been fairly efficient this year while taking care of the ball. I really like him from the mid-range. He's shooting a really good 43% on his 2-point jumpers, self-creating almost all of them. That is a pretty consistent theme you'll see with the Miami guard. He's really good at getting a bucket for himself, and I could see him doing well in a spark plug role off the bench, for example, since he's not really the most natural facilitator. Wong is crafty, able to chain moves together before elevating into his pull-up. He plays with nice pace, and his footwork is accurate since he's able to use step backs, spins, and bumps to effectively create space. The 22-year-old has okay size at 6'4", but he also gets great height on his jumper. With his touch, elevation, and ability to shoot off the bounce, it's tough to play drop coverage versus Wong. At the rim, Wong hasn't taken as many shots. A bit more than 1/4 of his attempts come here, and Wong is simply alright. Some of the things that we just saw come into play. For example, you see the touch and ability to finish over length with this tough shot over Derek Lively. But the Miami prospect is more of a below-the-rim athlete who has to rely on craft rather than explosiveness. In the half court, the ability to change directions is really important for Wong. Right now, he's converting on about 56% of his looks at the basket. That's definitely improvable, and it will be a steeper challenge against the bigger and better athletes of the NBA. Going out to the 3-point line, I'm pretty encouraged by what I see. Wong has taken over 150 threes this season and more than 500 in his college career. This has been his best year to date, making 39% of those trays. Not counting his freshman year with really low volume, Wong had made just 32% his previous 2 seasons. In college this year, Wong had legit gravity as a shooter. Defenders couldn't go under that often, and they had to close out on his jumpers from deep. Still, it's going to be worth tracking to see how Wong's shooting balances out. I think the indicators are there, but he needs to prove his consistency over time. All the other elements are mostly there, but I think his loading time can still be slow, such as on this step-back miss. That's why I'd prefer to see Wong in more of an off-ball role at the next level. That way he can get easier looks, he's made these all season, and then he definitely has what it takes to attack a closeout with a dribble or two and the pull-up. In that mid to late second round area, I want somebody who I can trust as a scorer, and Isaiah Wong, given his track record and versatility, he's somebody that I want off my bench. UCLA faces Gonzaga up next, so let's take a look at Bruins freshman Amari Bailey. With March rolling, Bailey is playing the best basketball of his college career at the best possible time. His start was slow though. Bailey actually did okay in his first games, but 1 and then 5-point nights back-to-back versus Illinois and Baylor hurt his stock. Then he also had 3 points versus Kentucky or 6 versus Arizona. Bailey just didn't look comfortable at all getting to his spots on the court, and this showed up in a variety of ways. At the rim, he's more of a strong athlete who needs a runway rather than a quick twitch prospect, so he was getting blocked fairly often. That lack of burst in short spaces was most apparent when Bailey had to play in traffic. Even when he was getting to the rim, the results were not good. This idea also showed up with his jumper. Bailey likes to go left into his mid-range shot, but it's been pretty inconsistent this season. Early on, I actually thought that his in-game speed was a tiny bit slow. It makes all the sense for a freshman a few months removed from high school. Bailey has a bit of a funky southpaw jumper, but I do buy his touch to an extent. So I think it's more so that defenders were able to really contest and get into his shot and bother it. The UCLA guard had some rough misses, but he's bounced back pretty nicely. I do feel like he's on a hot streak right now, which we're gonna have to keep tracking. His shooting numbers from the mid-range have really risen over the last month, by more than 10 percentage points actually, and they just were not that high most of the season. Some of his makes now look very nice, but I'm not sure that a guard, on or off the ball in today's NBA, gets so many of these looks in the league. This season, Bailey has made 39% of his 2-point Js. That's alright, I'm not crazy about the shot diet though, especially when you take his threes into account like we're about to shortly. Before that though, I do want to say, I was pretty impressed with how Bailey made himself valuable on rough shooting nights. A lot of the time, it was his defense setting him apart. Bailey is an active, engaged defender who is more disruptive than his reputation implies. His motor is solid, and I think he understands how to work around his athletic limitations in terms of length and pop. Bailey barely scored in this game versus Baylor, but watch how he follows off the ball, gets over the screen to pick up the deflection, and then leads UCLA on the break. Getting into his most recent improvement in March, it's been really notable. I feel like part of it is that he's adjusted to this more sort of defensive off-ball guard role that he's playing. In some ways this season, he's operated more like a wing since Tiger Campbell, Jaime Jaquez, and Jalen Clark command so much attention. I've liked those flashes. Bailey is timing his cuts and dives to the rim well, and then finishing at a steady rate. And he's also been drilling those pull-up twos that he enjoys at a much higher clip, going from about 39% to more than 60% in recent weeks. Looking to the now and the future, the three-pointer is Bailey's swing skill. Really, he doesn't take enough. Bailey has shot just 52 all season, so sure, his percentage doesn't look that bad at about 37%, but this is a tiny sample size. All but 5 of his trays this year have been assisted, which to me hints that Bailey is better as a spot-up shooter. Right now, I think his range and mechanics would also agree. Still, the difference has been remarkable over his last 5 games. That's when Bailey has really heated up. He's taking slightly more threes now and making them at a 39% clip, which in turn opens up the floor so much more. Also, it's crucial to touch on his free throws. Again, Bailey is guilty of a small sample size here. He's got into the line less than 60 times, so his percentage there actually seems low at about 70%. However, this is really few attempts, and as of late, Bailey is drawing twice as many free throws and making 83% of them, which has really helped boost his overall efficiency. I think Amari Bailey should return to UCLA, build up his draft stock again after a strong end, but if he was to ride out the momentum, I definitely would not blame him. Amari Bailey will be up against Gonzaga senior Julian Strawther, one of my favorite sleepers in the draft, March Madness or not. The 20-year-old wing's calling card is going to be his three-point shooting. Quite simply, Strother is lights out from the three-point line. For me, he's one of the most reliable snipers in the 2023 NBA draft, and he's been one of the best long-distance scorers in college basketball for some time now. Breaking down the numbers, almost half of the shots that Strother takes are three-pointers. He's making 43% of his trays, and he shot almost 170 of them this season. This means that Strother is shooting threes at a high volume and making them at a high clip. Strother has really nice size for a wing at about 6'7", 6'8", and his threes are quick, repeatable, come in different ways, and have legit range. Plus, Strother is a junior, but he doesn't turn 21 until April. I know that his percentages were not that high other years. The Zags wing made 32% of his threes as a freshman, and then about 37% last season. But again, for his first year, this is a case of tiny sample size, less than 30 shots. All the good signs were there last year as well, and to be honest, he was just a little unlucky. This year, everything is coming together for Strother. These looks are going in much more consistently, and really his overall improvement should not be downplayed. Getting into his role in the NBA, well, it's definitely also going to be to space the floor. But you gotta be able to do a little bit more than that, especially in those close playoff type games. I expect that Strother's shot diet is mostly going to keep being threes, but these types of in-between shots are really valuable. Strother is converting on about 48% of his 2-point jumpers this season. He's not taking too many of them compared to how many threes he gets up, but it's still about 100 of these twos. The Puerto Rican wing has patented this little runner or teardrop. He can get into this shot in multiple ways. Right here, it's off the screen going right. But Strother can also go left into the little sidestep and offhand finish. This in-between game makes a lot of sense given his exquisite touch, and it's also important because of his average finishing at the rim. Strother doesn't attack the rack that often, and he's shooting a little under 60% at the basket. Looking towards the next level, I want to see how his defense and any other type of playmaking really develops. Defensively, I think he's going to be okay. Strother is not an amazing stopper or anything, but his size gives him margin for versatility and to make mistakes. He's fairly mobile though, with solid enough feel. Ideally, you do want to see him take a few steps up on this end. He's not been tested that much at Gonzaga at times, so I'm pretty curious. How is Strother going to handle the range of wings and guards that he's going to be paired up against in the league? Then, it's also important to note that his role has not been to create for others at all. It's been to score, mostly from deep. Strother barely turns the ball over, but he also barely creates for others. Julian Strawther has been one of my favorite sleepers now for a couple of years, and I'm confident that he would return late first round value. Last but not least, we have Arkansas junior Ricky Council IV. Council didn't have the hype of other Razorback prospects, but he's had an incredible season that should see his name get called this summer. The 6'6" guard played his first 2 years of college ball at Wichita State, where he was actually pretty solid, especially last season. He posted pretty similar numbers to his breakout year at Arkansas now, but kinda slipped under the radar. Council is a powerful, sort of quirky athlete who excels at getting to the rack. He's scoring 16 points a night, not on the best efficiency as we'll get into, but he always makes himself felt. At the basket though, Council has been pretty consistent. He's converting on 66% of his looks here, and he's taken about 50 more of these shots at Arkansas than he did last season. That increase in volume is great to see. What I like the most though is how diverse Council is in getting to the rim. He can do so in transition, where he's a powerful athlete able to throw down some big dunks when he starts loading up. The Arkansas guard can also act as a cutter. Again, he's leveraging that athleticism pretty effectively here, and it's great with the lob finish. Council is just as able to create for himself. He's physical, able to take bumps and stay on balance. Often, he's even looking for contact himself, which is how he gets so many free throws. Arkansas might not have had the best spacing this season, but Council made it work regardless. I'm curious to see how he looks in the NBA with more openings because he does have some underrated creativity. Most of the time, Council plays pretty upright, more on that in a bit, and that makes it hard for him to change direction super effectively. But I like his body of counters, which features footwork and other moves to create space. Council likes this float over going to his left in particular. Again, we see it in action here, plus that upper body strength with how Council finishes through contact. But I do have some questions about his process. The Razorback spacing was rough, but some of it was Council's own doing. He's not a long distance shooter, so he prefers to operate in shorter spaces, use his body to dislodge defenders, or maybe get into short post-ups. The Arkansas guard can be guilty of playing slightly too much bully ball, and he'll get lost driving into traffic or dead ends. I'm also not sure that he has a lot of natural touch on his shot, which really shows up with his pull-up. Because if anything, I wish Council would take even more shots at the basket. Right now, he has a tendency to settle for long twos. He's comfortable getting into and taking these shots. In college basketball, you don't hate to see them, but if we're being realistic, it's tough to scale these down to the NBA level. There's room for mid-range jumpers in the NBA, but it's mostly going to be the biggest stars taking them under the brightest lights in the stickiest of games. Otherwise, complementary players have to also be able to score from here, but in different ways, like attacking closeouts into one-dribble pull-ups, runners, or layups. Instead, Counsell takes a lot of jumpers from around the elbows, either stemming out of isolations or maybe tight pick and rolls. He can make these shots, but the mechanics don't convince me. Some major changes are probably going to be necessary. A lot of it goes back to what I just mentioned about Counsell being too upright. His legs, it seems, are really stiff and not at all flexible. This limits his mobility and explosiveness overall. It also makes his lower body a bit of a mess on his jump shots. That means that you probably guessed it from 3. Counsell does struggle here. He's only making 27% of his threes. The good news is that he is shooting more at Arkansas, but the reality also is he hasn't been a good shooter going back to his first 2 seasons at Wichita State. From 3, I usually look for range, diversity, and consistency, but Counsell doesn't have any of those right now. His shot is stiff and he's not making it off the bounce or off the catch. Simply put, he's a long ways away. But the thing is, I'm not all the way out on Counsell's shot. For one, he's a gamer. You can give Counsell the ball in big moments and he might come up with a big shot. He definitely doesn't mind taking them, and he's not shy about letting it fly from the perimeter. Even though he's only making 27% of his threes, he has taken 120 of them. Looking towards his role in the NBA, those adjustments from 3, the efficiency, the mechanics, and the shot diet are going to be instrumental to clear up a somewhat murky outlook. Right now, I think the Arkansas guard's most ready tool is his slashing and finishing. This here I know is against the zone, but I wonder whether seeing him used out of short rolls like this might be fun and used more at the higher level. To quickly wrap up, I want to touch on Counsell's defense, which I generally like. He's got nice size at 6'6", and he probably plays slightly bigger than that. Counsell has taken on a variety of defensive assignments this season. It's been mixed, but I do think he's going to be able to defend 1 through 3 in the NBA, and maybe even some tiny 4s. He has questions to answer still, but I buy into Ricky Counsell's positive trajectory, his combination of tools, and I would pick him in the 2nd round. As always, thanks so much for watching. Make sure to leave a like, comment, and subscribe. Take care, and I'll catch you guys next time.